listen to the recording and you speak to the dictation recorder quite slowly, I think that might help, or that might you can get a better.
Because that might still save some time.
Yeah.
Can I unplug? While you're talking, I will unplug. Thank you.
David,
Yes.
A quick question for the Toshiba one. Does it also take in Chinese characters?
Yeah. Yeah, as long as the characters doesn't mean when you're typing doesn't matter which one. I think.
The computer.
Yeah, but the sort of procedure or the other languages on the web is on pages are all things.
It's okay. From what I've seen, I can actually work it out quite easily.
Yeah.
So I think with use, it's still manageable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed. So two things. One is I'm actually recording the screen, so we can refer to it later. Two, put notes here. You can put hyperlinks as well, so that you can just go back to this page and examine the kinds of software that we are going over. So Ruriko went over those 4 pieces of software, and then I will talk about my own experience, but I'll talk about it through this link that I just stumbled upon recently from NVivo, which talks about options for transcribing data in NVivo. And I'll go point by point and make a few points based on these points. All right, so ultimately NVivo's job is to get you to use their software, so they want you to transcribe on this software. I have actually not used NVivo for direct transcription. I've always used different things. I'll come to that in a moment. One thing that this writer for NVivo suggests is pay someone. Yes, you can pay someone. Use your own money. I actually haven't found any student in the faculty who has successfully gotten money from the faculty to do something to allow someone else to transcribe. I actually haven't found that yet. Maybe you know someone who's actually been able to successfully pull some teeth and get some cash to allow someone else to transcribe.
You think there will be people out there who are happy to be paid to do transcription?
Yes, there are these services, and this is one of them. This service is built into NVivo. I guess there's a purpose in it, in the sense that it's convenient, but it's not necessarily very rigorous. I think it's important that we as young researchers actually do the transcription just to get a feel for it, and not only for this method, but also it's our data. Especially it suggests qualitative research. We must be swimming in the data, and that means listening to it and getting the feel and listening to the tone and all these kinds of things that don't necessarily come through in text. Okay, so NVivo has some pay options within its software for you to outsource the transcription, and you can also do it within the NVivo software. I've not tried it. I don't know anyone who's actually tried it. Just looking at that screenshot, it seems very complicated. Too many buttons. So it's a lot, again, when I was giving the NVivo workshop, NVivo was a lot like Android operating system. Just too many functions, too many things to learn and to press. Say no to transcripts. Okay, this is a very, very important point too. This is our point in being researchers. Must we transcribe things verbatim? I transcribed all of my interviews verbatim. I did everything. I didn't have to. In fact, my supervisor, my primary supervisor at the time, didn't want me to. But I just did it because I'm crazy. All right, and again, this is just the idea of being a young researcher and feeling like I have a lot of time and wanting to do this kind of stuff.
Like what you said when you said
yeah, I gotta feel it.
Feel
Feel the data. Yeah, I gotta feel it. So again, it depends on your analytical framework too. Must you actually transcribe everything verbatim? Must you transcribe chunks or sentences or words? Or again, these are the kinds of things that you have to examine. In hindsight, in my research, I didn't have to transcribe much. In fact, I didn't have to really transcribe anything at all. I was looking for the mentioning of certain words, and then if I see that or hear this word, then I can take a look at what they're talking about. But I didn't have to look at everything. So that's something for you to think about, and it's according to your own analytical framework. Must you actually transcribe things? To what extent? And then that was something else that I brought up in the in vivo workshop. How do you actually transcribe to? How do you know to paragraph separate things? You know, in this world, this social world, you know, as I'm talking right now, when you're transcribing, is this just one long paragraph? Am I just speaking a long paragraph? When is there a break? When do you know there's a break? So again, to go back to the first point, that's actually a problem too. You know, with having someone else do it, they have their own heuristic in knowing when to paragraph separate, if they paragraph separate, or the sentence separate, or whatever. So that's something else for you to think about. You have to work that out. How do you create idea units from transcription? Okay. Let me actually go to what I was using instead of in vivo. And I used several pieces of software in combination. So let's just take an example. If I am recording this conversation right now, I'm using my iPhone. Before that, when I started the research, I had an Android, but I got rid of my Android. and there was actually a problem too. So when I was using the Android, I was using the built-in voice recorder, and then I would label things. So if you see here at the top, there's some automatic labeling, but then sometimes I would just have my own nomenclature to label. Okay, so that's something to consider. The software will automatically name something, but perhaps it's better that you name things. And I record. And the thing about the Android software, the built-in one, was that it didn't automatically sync to something else. So once you record it, it's only there. It's stuck on this thing. It's not anywhere else. So if you lose your phone, you lose everything. If you don't back things up manually, well, things might happen. And that's actually what happened to me. I sold my Android phone without backing everything up. I'd forgotten. So actually, I lost data. I actually lost files, my thoughts and things. So that was a painful experience. Things are a bit easier with this Apple software because when you record notes using the voice recorder, the built-in one, when you plug it into your computer, it automatically syncs with iTunes. So it automatically creates a backup on your desktop. Or if you use their cloud service, it goes up to their cloud as well. So I like the Apple ecosystem because it's more automatic. Yes.
Sounds like it can sync to the cloud as well, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, yes. So Apple has its own service called like iTunes Match, and I use this service. Hello. iTunes. And it's iTunes cloud service. So you can actually store your files on iTunes on Apple's servers as well for free. Actually, no, you have to pay. But I pay. So, so it syncs automatically to this, and if you have iTunes Match, it goes up to. So it's very, very convenient. But in fact, I don't use the built-in audio recorder. I use something called Meeting Recorder Pro. I think I paid for it. But if you go to the iTunes store, I think this, okay. Well, anyway, there are many, many meeting recorder apps out there. And I'm sure they're very, very similar. So I started using this not least because I could choose the kind of file format, like MP3 file or AAC file. And it also is integrated with other cloud storage services. So what I do now is, if I'm using my iPhone, I use this meeting recorder. Afterwards, when we're done recording, I label it. Then I share it. I can easily share it to my Google Drive, my Dropbox, or Evernote, or other kinds of places. So that's what I do after all of my recordings. Apple doesn't do that automatically because Apple wants you to use Apple products. Okay? So I use another kind of app. So when I'm actually transcribing, now that I've actually collected and stored, what I do is I use Google Docs. And again, I have my own nomenclature. I open up a doc, and then I open up the file on iTunes. And because the iTunes interface can be very, very simple, it doesn't look like this. It just has stop and play when you minimize the interface. I just hit play, type, stop. But I have to do that often. That's actually what I did. It's not necessarily the most efficient way to do these kinds of things, but I did it. And I found it was easier to do it using the iTunes interface on the desktop than using necessarily this on my phone to stop and play on this thing. Okay, and then, because I use Google Docs, everything is stored in the same place. All my audio files, and then all the transcripts. Okay. And I think that's about it. Yeah. Any questions about that?
I want to ask you a question. This will be very stupid. But you know how people talk about the importance of data security?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm very aware of this because I've been interviewed quite a number of times by researchers.
Yes.
And people always give you this letter which says, all the files will be secure and I will lock it and whatever. Yes. Now, what happens to sound files? I mean, can sound files be encrypted?
Sure. Why not? Anything can be encrypted.
Yeah. How do you do that?
Not sure because I didn't have the files.
I was just thinking that all the stuff we talk about data security.
Yes.
Then what about sound files?
Right. Especially like stored online.
Yes.
Yeah. On the cloud.
Even though they're not so secure.
Yes. Well, that is something that the myth of security is a myth because in fact Google owns data.
Oh yeah.
Apple owns data. We know about the National Security Agency in the United States. They can easily access anything on our phone.
Yeah. Oh, there's no data out there.
Yes, there's no privacy. This is just something that's very relational. Maybe like all your things are safe. How safe must they be? It depends on the person that you're talking to. Again, even I think it was in Chen Kaiming's workshop. It's like sometimes people don't even want things recorded. People want things off the record. So it's a very relational process. For me, I would never suggest because of the people I'm talking to, I don't need to encrypt anything. In fact, I don't need to keep anything safe. These are the kinds of people who say, we'll just open their mouths. They want everyone to do it. I mean, this is, the whole idea of ethics is it's hard to make grand generalizations.
I think the researcher taking every precaution to protect and make sure no harm is done.
Yes, agreed.
Right?
Yes, and we must socially construct what that harm is. To what degree are things harmful and what degree are things beneficial? And for my research participants, these technologists, they just love opening their mouths.
Oh.
It's great. It's not like they're saying sensitive things. Yes, it was very easy to do research with them.
Yeah, they're lucky.
Yeah,
I research my school, and if I do assure people that this is all anonymous and nobody will hear you talk about it, I don't think people will easily open their mouths.
Yes. I guess because my people are all about change. These are change agents. They just want to spread the message as much as possible. These are technological evangelists. They're not very concerned at all. they want to be a part of this. They're not necessarily very careful about security because they're all about change, breaking down walls, not erecting walls. So maybe, again, it's hard to make generalizations. Maybe some people will request you to encrypt things, sure. That's very, very relational, right? And I'm sure there's some software.
Yeah, I was just wondering, whether there's anything available out there for encrypting sound files. Because, I don't know whether this might be an issue if it comes up in a Viper kind of thing.
Yes.
People say, hey, what about the ethical issues?
Yes, I agree. And the kind of discussion that we had just now, I think, is very, very important. It's very, very thoughtful. Because we can't necessarily make these broad generalizations. Must we encrypt everything? When, in fact, just that we have it somewhere else in someone else's possession, not locally stored, means that it's open to someone else's eyes. Even local storage means nothing anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
What is privacy now when with governmental and non-governmental agencies just being able to access everything? Yes.
Like if I'm using a digital audio recorder, just save it on the computer, not uploading to any online thing.
Yes.
That means more secure than using this.
Oh yeah, then putting it online. Sure.
Not even putting it online.
Yeah. I don't actually put a lot of things online. I just put them on different disks, hard disks.
Yes.
And a lot of them are password protected anyway.
Yes.
Even when recording, just use a traditional digital recorder and not phones.
No, phones is okay. I know what I normally do is actually, because phones are easy to lose, so as soon as I finish the recording, I copy the file onto my laptop and make a backup copy on an external hard disk as well, which is also password protected.
Yes. Great.
And then I delete the sound file on the phone.
Yes. We ultimately must come up with our own routines, and if we can just articulate them and be rigorous about it to a degree, I think everything will be fine. I don't think people are challenged in this way unless your reviewer really has an agenda to kind of stick it to you. I think we will all be fine in this area.
I think as long as we're all aware of it, that's all right.
Yes, it's the rigor, it's the thoughtfulness about it. That is really important that we must demonstrate. Okay, so getting to this whole point of dictation software, Dragon dictation has been very, very popular. These days, I use the Apple built-in dictation software. I learned this through one of the people that I studied, the technologists. So on your iPad, for instance, if it's connected to Wi-Fi, if you open up maybe a note file. Yeah. Yes. So create a new note. Let's create a new note. Okay. So, oh, hey, where is it?
There's a microphone.
Yeah, there's a microphone here. There should be a microphone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, the microphone feature has to be enabled.
Yeah. Maybe it's not enabled.
Yeah, it's on the iPhone, it's on the laptop, it's also on the iPad.
You see the little microphone icon.
Yeah, and that thing is really, really cool.
Oh.
It's very, very accurate with a Wi-Fi connection. You have to learn to speak in a certain kind of way, but it's quite useful. So this writer recommends actually dictating the interview. I've never done that before. I'm not sure what the point is.
I tried it. I tried it on Samsung, and it's 100% accurate.
Oh, amazing!
Really,
that's really, really cool.
You know how I discovered it is that one day when I was driving, I was using Line, the app.
Yes.
And so I was dictating into my phone while driving, and it came out 100% accurate. So I thought, why didn't I try it on a bigger like Samsung Tab on Samsung Note?
Yes.
Because it's the same software. And it is true. I mean, I don't have to speak very slowly. I normally don't speak very fast anyway. But, like normal speak like this.
Yes.
And it's 100% accurate. I hardly have to change a thing. I just need to like put in. So after I did the first draft,
Yes.
I listened, I played the recording again, and then I put in whatever details I needed to add, like the hesitation, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Or emotion and so on. But as the first round of transcription, I find it very useful.
Yes. Great. In fact, right now, we can try this transcription technique, period. You can see up there, right?
Wow.
That I am dictating to my iPad, period. We are checking the iPad's accuracy, period. Yeah, it's okay.
Wow. Yeah. Can you check it?
Yeah, that's okay, period. I have not tried other languages, but I think if we switch to another language interface, 广东话. So let me switch to the Chinese interface here. Hold on a second.
The thing is, I find that it can't do mixed code.
Yes.
Okay? If you do code switching, code mixing, it can't work.
Yes.
But I've only tried it with English.
Yes. Me too. I've only tried it with English. So maybe some of you more adventurous people can try with Cantonese. I'm sure code switching, yes, I agree, code switching isn't working. That's the next stage, 5 years from now. Being able to handle multiple languages at the same time.
We need bilingual people developing this.
Yes. The machines can learn. I mean, it's machine learning. You just keep feeding back, and it can start identifying the grammar and the lexis of particular code switching. Because code switching actually involves certain specific grammar and lexis. So if the computer can learn this, then it could easily perhaps transcribe code switching.
It just requires a large enough database.
Yes, and Google has it. I'm sure they do, because they have everything. The NSA has it too. They have all the data.
Oh my God! I'm leaving the session feeling even more.
So this is something that you can try as well, dictating things. And again, maybe you don't need transcripts, autocoding. You don't necessarily need that too.
So David, excuse me. So
Yes.
you open up a note, right? When you do this, is that right? You have to start opening a note to do this.
To do what?
For the transcription.
Yeah. So I'm using Google Docs, and I opened a new document, and I wrote all of that.
Oh.
And then because everyone can work on it at the same time, I can just open the same document and work on it from here, and things show up there. The document is also on my laptop right now. So, hello. Hello. Am I there? Okay. So, hello. We are also on this laptop. So all of the documents is on these 3 screens, and they're updating automatically. So it can be very, very useful sometimes. When I was doing an interview with one of the technologists, while we're actually doing the interview, he opened up notes in preparation for our interview, and we could actually work on the notes together as well. So that's really cool. I like Google Docs. I'm using it for years.
The key is to have the iPad and then Wi-Fi. Is that
Not necessarily iPad, right? You can just do it on the iPad.
For the voice dictation, you need Wi-Fi. You need the speed.
Oh.
Maybe it works on 4G connection to do the dictation, but on my $80 a month 3G thing, it doesn't transcribe very, very well. So that's very important. And Apple recommends Wi-Fi too for the dictation. All right. So what about you guys? Let's open up to the floor. What are things that, what are softwares, pieces of software and techniques that you use for transcribing interviews?
Oh, I use Samsung. Yeah, I've been using it for a few months now because I actually have not found anything better.
Yes.
That's probably the only thing I've tried.
Yes. So, I mean, you were already mentioning some of your data collection, storage, and transcription techniques, right? And it sounds like I'm reconstructing now, right? Deconstructing your interview to reconstruct it. You have a Samsung recorder, and then you also have local copies, backups of the files, and you've tried voice dictation.
Yeah. I'm super paranoid, so when I go and do a recording, like in a classroom, I normally put like a video at the back of the room, but you know, as minimally intrusive as possible.
Yes.
And then tape recorders everywhere because it kind of like picks up the sort of like backstage talk, given by the students as well. So not just the teacher. Yeah. So I end up actually, when it comes to transcription, I always find it a headache because I'm like listening to the whole thing many times, but the recordings are actually made in different corners.
That's really, really cool.
But it's really fun as well because you can talk about the interaction, and that's why the video is important too, because sometimes it's so hard to identify, which group this tape recorder belongs to.
That is very cognitively intensive.
But it's great fun.
Yes.
It's really great. It's like you get different colors of the same action.
Yes. I'm using networks perspective in my research, and it's cool that you can record at different angles because then you can actually hear and map the interactions. That person's talking to this person, that person's talking to that person, and then you can actually start mapping the path of an idea. This person mentions something to that person, then it mentions it to the entire group, a small group, and then they can mention it to the entire class when the mode of communication changes. Yeah. That's really cool.
Because in a normal classroom class, well, in my kind of school, there's a lot of like overlapping dialogue going on.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's not like there's a normal path of turn taking.
Yes.
So for me, it's essential to actually use separate tape recorders.
Yes.
And some of these kits, they're great as well. You put a tape recorder there, they pick it up and they start speaking into it, and they pass it to another group member, and that's actually very useful too.
Yes, I agree. One of my technologists does that. When he wants to make a point, he just picks up the recorder and says, "Hey, remember this." So that's quite advantageous. Someone wants to be so helpful.
That's right.
That they'll be like, okay, well, I'm going to say that one more time very clearly for the record. Yes, that's good. Yes. What about you guys? Any techniques, practices, software to share?
I've just started to connect.
Oh, great.
Coming to listen to your ideas.
Yes.
Has anyone done it with Cantonese or Putonghua or another language? You've done it with Japanese, right? No, you haven't. You couldn't do it with English. But I bet the Toshiba one can do Japanese.
Yes.
I'm a bit curious about this voice dictation software because you were saying quite accurate, but which do you think is fastest in tonality with the help of voice dictation software and adding sort of layers, details later, or just starting from the
like the word, words and so. I tried both, but I think I'm using different techniques because sometimes you have quite a lot of data to transcribe.
Yes.
Even when I finish like 55-minute lesson and I try to listen to all these recordings, watch the video and so on, I tend to use different methods to cut down on the monotony. So it's like I like to try different methods so it's not so boring.
Yes, it is.
Because the whole thing is so labor intensive.
Yes.
Because I found 10 minutes recording takes me 1 hour.
Oh yeah.
Yes. That's the ratio.
So I'm not sure how if I use voice dictation software would how my efficiency.
Yes. But why do we have such a golden ratio? Is it because of technology, or it's just because we're being thoughtful. It just takes time for us to think about things, right? It takes time for us to process, hear things, and then recognize that it's important.
I guess it also depends on what you're transcribing as well. Yeah? So if I'm transcribing a speech thoughtfully made,
Yes.
then it's easy for me to actually stop and dictate it into something. Yeah?
Yes.
Whereas if it's in a classroom interaction, it probably doesn't pay off if I have to repeat every single utterance.
Agreed.
Yeah, for dictation.
Yes. The interviewee is very, very important. How articulate is the interviewee? Because if this person doesn't follow standard norms and standards for grammar and lexis, then it can be incomprehensible when we actually hear it.
Yeah, and then you have to repeat it.
Yes.
And dictate it.
We know enough about language learning that we understand language in chunks. If we expect someone to say something in a certain way, using certain collocations, but we use other kinds of collocations, transcribing can be all the more difficult. If you expect someone to say something like this, in fact they say something like this, and wow, that's kind of crazy. I think that can be especially difficult with second language learners. So, yes, the collocations are a bit off.
So I'm still kind of like hoping that out there, it's just that we haven't found it yet. Just this perfect, recording, the automatic transcription device.
Yes.
Just try out, find out which one or kind of combination with what you do.
We're moving in that direction. I'm sure that the big software companies want this to be so important. We're actually moving away from textual society to the audio society again. We don't need to type and write anymore. We just need to speak. And again, spoken language existed before written language. And we're moving back because of technology back into the spoken language mode. And just for the record, we can store things in text too. So I'm sure that Apple and Google are collecting things, making their voice dictation software more intelligent. So ultimately, one day, we can talk like this, and everything can be perfectly transcribed. Machines can learn to do this. They can learn to recognize distinctive voices. They can learn about our cadence and our choice of grammar and lexis, and then they can just start doing this.
Hey, can I ask a coding question related to what we're talking about today? From your experience, how do you compare manual coding? Because you were just saying, hey, you've transcribed everything. I've not transcribed everything because I just want to get a paper done or just whatever. So I just listen a lot and then pick the extracts and so on.
Yes.
So like you, I also listen to keywords and think, okay, that's my coding. But I'm just thinking that if when you have a lot of data, is it really advisable to go for software like Analytical rather than manual coding?
You do what you want, to be quite frank. Just
Really?
demonstrate thought. Yes.
What's your experience?
I'm really manual person, so I prefer manual coding, but I'm only dealing with not enough of data yet, so not sure if I have a ton of data, maybe I would start using the people.
Sure. Yes.
Really as just a helpful as a starting point to get that basic idea of what's happening in the data. But when you're getting into the deeper sense of analyzing the data, so coding can help.
There is a place for all sorts of technologies. Let's just be thoughtful about our use. Ultimately, it doesn't depend on the technology. The limit and the constraint is our mind. That is ultimately we are the analytical machine. So it's whether using note cards or something digital, these are just inputs that go into our mind.
If we have already an audio tape interview, and what kind of speed would the speaker? I mean, can I just replay that audio and then let the dictation software get whatever that he could put down and then just insert the things or kind of through the things that
because I don't think we discussed any software that will actually auto-transcribe. So you just input something and then it comes out. We're talking about the future when we talk about this kind of software.
But like if we do dictation, it is targeting a certain speed of speech that it could go down, right?
I think so. But we actually don't understand that.
What's the speed that you think appropriate?
Apple doesn't tell us.
It doesn't specify, but you just need to experiment.
Yes.
More. Like the speed at which I'm speaking now, if I use Samsung to do the automatic transcription, it's perfectly fine.
And maybe they don't want us to have this kind of standard of speech in mind because then they can't fix the data. Because every time we speak slowly or fast, they learn. The machine actually learns. So it doesn't matter how fast or how slow you speak. The machine just wants to improve. So that you can speak as fast or as slow as you want, and the machine will still be accurate. And in order to do that, they don't want to improve standards.
But there's a certain limit of this voice recognition.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's like, and people, well, this is actually, if you're doing linguistic research, that is actually critically important how the person speaks and
Yes.
like tone and intonation and those things
Yes.
that a machine cannot do.
Yes, not yet. That's the thing. It's I think we have to kind of think about our view of technology. While the machine is like a box and ultimately we have to conform to its constraints, the machine also wants to conform to our constraints as well. So it's very dialogical.
When you think about it, when the like Apple or Samsung does the automatic dictation thing, because it's actually very clever already, because we don't actually, none of us speaks at a